The plan for this podcast, Making Our Way, was simple enough. We wanted to share our experiences. We've spent a lifetime growing and on the go, growing up, growing older, maybe wiser, and traveling to places familiar and new. And that travel covers all 50 states, 5 continents, dozens of countries. But we have also traveled life's other roads of social concerns, political affiliations, theologies, relationships, friendships, food, and culture. So the plan was simple. Let's share our acquired experience and expertise with an audience both young and old, novice and pro, friends and soon-to-be friends. While it might not be Rick Steves, it's us doing our best to share what we've learned. We make the mistakes so you don't have to. And speaking of mistakes, take this summer, please. The plan was for an easygoing, economical affair. Jan and Rob would RV through Michigan, their home state. Dee and I would camp in our beloved Acadia National Park and maybe get a cabin in North Georgia on the way home. But it must have been that old Rick Steves tour guide, Robert Burns, who said, "The best laid plans of mice and men often go awry." That one was for Ellen Jones. We had a bit of trouble making our way through this summer. Sure, 3 of us did enjoy something resembling vacation, but one little piggy stayed home. And the expense? Well, here's a brief rundown of how we spent our summer vacation that we call the Summer of George. So, did you ever have a teacher that gave you the assignment, how I spent my summer vacation, write an essay?
I think I remember doing it.
Did you ever make your kids do it?
No.
Okay.
So how did we spend our summer vacations? We're back. This is now season 2 of Making Our Way. Yeah. And this summer brought a lot of surprises. You know, it all goes under the best laid plans thing. But you had some very well laid plans, you guys.
We did.
And you're in the RV doing what?
We were camping this summer, or glamping. We were heading up to Michigan. We're going to do the Upper Peninsula with Russ and Sandy, my sister and brother-in-law. We had planned several nights to get up there. We like to take our time. So we made it to Forsyth, Georgia, and we love this campground because it's a KOA, but when you check in, they give you chocolate chip cookies.
The ultimate camping experience.
Absolutely.
That's why you said glamping, right?
Glamping,
yeah.
yes. And everything was going great. We had a nice evening, a nice night. I get up the next day and we put everything down and we're getting ready to pull out and I start the RV and every warning light on the dashboard came on. 3 of them I recognized as a wheel sensor, but there was another thing. There was something with our diesel exhaust fluid and the check engine light that came on at the same time.
Well, here's what was significant about these lights. One of the sensors determines whether you can restart your vehicle. So if you keep restarting it with these light sensors on, eventually you won't be able to start your vehicle. And
You mean so that it's like a safety feature?
Yes.
Like if you put the password in too many times, it won't take
Exactly.
any...
Right.
Okay.
So it wouldn't start after 16. We had 16 opportunities to restart the vehicle.
we ended up cutting our trip short. We drove directly to Detroit. We weren't able to get it fixed along the way. The lesson is never leave for vacation on a weekend when things are not open fully. And so we went directly to Detroit. We got to Detroit safely. And in Detroit, you can get any vehicle fixed, for the change in your pocket, apparently.
Well, yeah, $2,600 later, we had a vehicle that was working again.
But I think the most important part of it, didn't you replace your toilet?
That was after
later.
that.
That was
That
later.
came later.
Oh, that's very good.
Oh yeah, that was at the end of our trip, just before we went to Chicago.
It's okay.
We were in Chicago for a week so we could get it fixed there. So we found a place. And so we got a new toilet and we got our vehicle fixed, and the rest of the time with the camper, the RV was just pretty much fine.
Minus the window coming off a few times.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one up in front above the
Yes,
tab?
the
Yeah,
one above the cab, and it's always been a problem, and the only thing that's worked with it is tape to keep it from falling out. and but the tape kept coming loose. So so about 3 or 4 times during our vacation, I have to climb up on the roof and retape.
Just paint on the side the clampets. Here they are. So you say you fix this toilet. Now, I've got a question that I think is on the mind of everyone who has ever not been in an RV but drives behind them. Can you use the toilet while it's in motion?
Most definitely, I do it all the time.
And so when you flush, does it?
No, it doesn't.
It goes into a tank. It's all
Okay,
good. It's
all
all
right.
good.
It's called the black tank.
Of course it is. Okay, well then I'll think behind that Winnebago, it must have been some seagulls or something.
We did visit some cool places, though. We went to Hartwick Pine State Park, and that's significant for having some of the only old growth forest left in the state of Michigan, white pine forest.
We got to do some things on this vacation that were nostalgic, and we had some new experiences too. But the nostalgic ones were, number one was, I suppose, Mackinac Island, because Rob and I went there on our honeymoon. And also, we had gone there. The expression on your face is
I
confusing.
thought you went to Frankenmuth.
Well, yeah, we started in Frankenmuth, but you drive north from there, and
I
you
have
go up
no
around.
memory of that. Well, I wasn't part
I
of
was
the
just going
trip.
to say you weren't on the honeymoon.
No, you weren't there. We went to Mackinac Island, which is this great vacation spot, right where the Lower Peninsula and the Upper Peninsula meet. You can't take cars on that island. It's mostly a state park, and it used to be Ojibwe land. It was Native American land, and it was a sacred place. They called it the Great Turtle because of how the island looked. So it's still a very cool place to go. That's where the Grand Hotel is.
That's the Somewhere in Time Hotel, right?
Yeah.
Christopher Reeve, Jane Seymour.
Yep.
Yeah. The homes that are on that island are summer homes for people who have resources. But the island is fascinating. It's a great place to go, and you can ride a bike all the way around the island, or you can take a horse and buggy ride. It's known for fudge. You go there and you buy fudge. There's no bridge to that island. You take a ferry over. You get a really great view of the Mackinac Bridge,
And you can take dogs.
and you can take dogs.
That's what's cool.
We took Sky with us.
Guy wasn't real sure about the
The ferry ride
ferry
scared her.
ride. Yeah.
But
And then we headed into the Upper Peninsula. We visited Jeff and Dorothy Smith at their home on Piatt Lake.
Is this the house that Jeff built?
Jeff built this house. Yeah.
ground up,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
Beautiful house. Yeah.
His workmanship is, he's taken his life basically to build that place. And now it's their retirement home. But it is beautiful. And so on this trip, we got to see Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, and Lake Superior, the big lake they call Gitchigumi.
Yes.
There are all these commercials for traveling in Michigan called Pure Michigan. This is my promotional statement. It is an absolutely beautiful place to travel. You're never far from water. You can be in remote areas that are pristine. I don't think I experienced enough of that as a child because we somehow seem to always leave Michigan for the most part for vacation.
To come here. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're going back to basically we're going home when we go to Michigan. It will always be that. And we got to visit places where we had been as children and young adults, but we also added places that somehow we had never been. So in our whole making our way in our podcast, that was an important part of our lives was spending time in that place. Sacred place for me.
Yeah.
So we drove up around Lake Michigan, if you can picture that in your minds. And we ended up in Chicago where we have family. Rob's sister Sandy, her 2 boys and their families live in Chicago, and we stayed at their places. And we did a really cool architectural tour in Chicago along the river.
You'd love that if you haven't done it before.
It's fascinating.
Really worth doing. It's beautiful.
Really nice. And it was a beautiful day. We ate pizza in Chicago. You can't beat that. Yeah. So we did that.
You said you had pizza in Chicago?
Well,
It's a pizza
Is this
summer.
this deep dish stuff?
Yes.
It's not really pizza. Is it?
well, it's Chicago pizza.
It's lasagna.
It's Chicago pizza.
When we
Chicago
were up
pizza.
there in April, we had pizza. I thought
Yeah.
that was pretty good.
It
was
was
very
exactly
good.
that. That is exactly.
It
that's
was very
Chicago
good, but it broadens the name of pizza beyond some people's expectations.
Well, it's not thin crust, we'll say.
You can't hold it in your hand, kind of fold it and eat it on a
You
subway.
need a fork and knife.
Well, now there's a Detroit-style pizza, too,
Now,
that
what's
is
that?
even thicker. It's like this.
Oh,
I
could not
know.
do that.
It's,
I know.
it's like the
It
arms
must be
race. We've
like
got a pizza race now for how thick can you make it.
It's
They're like, that's not pizza.
That's right.
It was a trip about family, very much, and that's what we enjoyed. And then we got to go to CMI, which is the Territorial Music Camp for the Central Territory of the Salvation Army, which has huge meaning in our lives from Dad.
Dad used to do summers up at Wonderland Camp as a program director. And I remember he's a teacher. He's always a teacher. And so kids would come, say, from just the inner city of Chicago. They'd come out to this camp, and then he'd want to provide other experiences for them. And so they would go and visit a farm. I remember going, first time I saw how eggs were made. Well, that's not the way to say that.
You mean besides Gordon Ramsay? I'm just
Fried, scrambled,
poached. I went into a cooking show or some other direction, but we would see the eggs there, and they weren't all white. How come they're not white eggs? And these kids from the city would come in. That's an actual cow. I saw a cow. But he used to do that too in Chicago. There was a place called the Settlement. Dad was somehow involved in the Settlement, and he, if you can imagine doing this today, he would take like 20 kids and just get on the subway, the L. You just get on the subway to take them down to the Adler Planetarium or to go to the Field Museum or someplace like that. If you can imagine one guy with 20 kids trying to get in and out of those subway doors and all together. And he just liked to give these kids who wouldn't have had these kinds of experiences otherwise, give them that kind of experience.
Yeah. As we've made this connects to CMI for you and for me too. Those of us who have made our way somewhere else along, like away from the Salvation Army, doesn't mean we've closed the door on the experiences and the things that we learned and the people that we were around in those times. That's what's special to me. I know the place is special to you, but the people that we were with there, that's what was special to me. And those connections are still there, even though we've moved on to someplace else. That connection to the Salvation Army, I think, will always be there.
Oh, yeah. It's that thing we did every year, part of the tradition of our family, that gave me, I'll speak for myself, a huge appreciation for Salvation Army music and the participation in a band, and also the community of people that would come together every year.
The Salvation Army people in charge of this whole Chicago greater metropolitan area are our cousin Barb and her husband John.
And that place was important to her parents, to Jack and Mitch, our aunt and uncle, and to our grandparents. This is why a place like that can have so much significance. That I'm going to say, if there's a lesson, I learned a lot of lessons from Dad, but one of those lessons is to honor those places from which you've come. It's why on our vacations we would go by our old homes. This is a similar kind of thing. You're going back to a place that it's more than nostalgia. I'm going to say it's a spiritual connection to a place and to the things that happened there.
Yeah.
That was our summer.
That was your summer. That sounds like a wonderful.
Yeah.
You know what your summer taught me?
What's that?
Saving money with an RV can be very expensive.
Yeah.
Well, so far so good. A bit of roadside RV maintenance, sure, but they kept rolling along. Dee's and my stories are a bit different, which we'll hear in a moment. But first, here are some upcoming podcasts currently in production. We have an interview with Master Sergeant O'Neill Ducharme, a retired Marine and veteran of World War II in the Pacific. Think Okinawa. That episode will be broadcast starting November 13th, just after Veterans Day. It occurs to us that 3 of our crew are or were public school teachers, so we'll share some of our thoughts on the current state of public education as seen from inside the classroom in an episode we'll call Those Who Can Teach. Also, we'll take a look at the plight of Haitian immigrants in the U.S. as told from their point of view. And Dee has some relatives with remarkable stories to tell. There are three: an artist, a musician, and a sea captain, one of whom met a very dangerous man in Germany in the 1930s. That very dangerous man might not be the one you're thinking it is. Then again, it might. Those episodes and much more are in production and will be coming your way week by week. For now, how did Dee and I fare this summer? Well, let's return to the summer of George.
How was your summer, Jim?
Well, Dee gets to talk about this because this is going to be a commercial for Air Canada, I think.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, so I went up to visit Mom and spend some time with her, and that was about it. It was just a nice, relaxing after the school year, spend time with family.
On your side, that was just about it. But it was an 11-day trip.
Yes.
And then the day you're going to leave to come back, your first flight was delayed, meaning your second flight was not going to work.
Yeah, I wasn't going to make my connection. So I ended up going on a flight that was leaving 2 days later.
So they put you on a flight 2 days later. Now, early in the morning, I was so excited that, now she really is coming home. So early in the morning, like about 3 a.m., I woke up and I wanted to check the status of this new flight. And I found out it was
Canceled.
So they put you on a flight 2 days after that.
2 days after that. It was a Saturday. But Air Canada, canceled my flight twice. I ended up getting 6 extra days added on to my trip, which luckily I was on vacation. So it's not like I had to get back for teaching.
Oh, teaching, yeah. It's Air Canada. They love to fly every now and then.
So, one of my students was getting married. And originally, when she told me about it, I said, oh, well, we're going to be driving that way to go camping. So right by there. And I said, I'm going to go to your wedding. And Jim will explain a little later on why we ended up not going camping. So I really wanted to go to this wedding. I knew it meant a lot to my former student. So I ended up buying a ticket and going to our wedding, which was quite beautiful. And then coming home and not going on our camping trip, which we then planned to modify and go somewhere else right before I was going back to school. And again, Jim will explain why that didn't happen. And then my family had a loss, and I ended up flying home again right before school. So it was a bit of a mixed bag this summer.
Yeah, it was. Have you seen the Seinfeld episode where George Costanza announces this is going to be the summer of George? Well, I had a summer of George, except it was George Bailey. It's a Wonderful Life. This is the guy who's always making plans. He's got the suitcase, he's got the funds, and everything happens, and he never leaves town. So this was my summer of George. There's a health problem with Brigus. So I have to take him to the vet. And the result of that is at home, he has to be kind of sedated while he's in recovery. So I'm with him 24/7. But then finally you do come back. And I said, after all those flight delays, I said, all I want, can I just take one day to go to Disney World? I want to ride the train. That's how I'd been reduced. I just wanted to take the train ride. So you say, okay, take the day, go to Disney. So I took the day, went to Disney, and it was like a downpour all day. So I just sat in the train station, never getting on the train. And then I came back, and that was my day.
It's like Charlie Brown.
Yeah. And then you notice that Brigus's ear had a little bit of like a bubble in it, and it turned out to be an ear hematoma. Yeah. That's where he shakes his head. These long-eared dogs, when they shake their head enough, it can put such force in it that a blood vessel bursts, then the ear starts to fill up like ravioli, sort of, and so you've got to take care of it. And what they do is they drain it off, and then he was on a steroid for a while so that it would heal up, scar up, and then that would take care of the problem. Well, that didn't work. So then he had to go into some sort of a head wrap thing where the ear is put over the top of the head and it's held immobile there. And that's 2 weeks, and that didn't work. But we thought it did, because right at the end of the 2 weeks, you're going up to New Hampshire. And so I take you to your flight on that Friday morning, and then I come back, and what do I find? As I'm looking around, I find here in this room where we are, the dining room, this carpeted room, I find a little capsule, prescription capsule, that holds these granules, but there aren't any granules in it. And Pip, our lovely Teacup Yorkie, has gotten into something somehow and has broken this thing open, and I don't know how much he's ingested. So off to the vet, where he's going to be put on, he's got blood work he's got to have IVs, and they've got to watch him and see what they're going to do. He's such a small boy, but it was like 180 milligrams of stuff. And a dose for a dog his size would have been 5 milligrams. It's a serious issue. So I take him over. So I drop him off, and they're going to keep him for the day and watch him, monitor him, and then call if they have to do anything with him. So then I come home, and I'm looking around on the floor, and I see these little tiny white granules all over the room. So I've got some tweezers, and I've got a flashlight, and I start picking up, and I'm able to recover 160 milligrams of this stuff. That leaves 20, which is 4 times his dose. But I put this in a baggie, and I go back to the vet, and I say, look, because they've already explained what the bill is going to be. So I just say, here, how is he doing? Can I take him home? Well, we still should watch him. So that was that day. The vet bills over the summer were about $1,300.
Yeah.
But the big kicker was, while I'm home with Brigus trying to help him through this sedated state, and I'm noticing the house is a little bit warmer than it ought to be. And a few visits later, we had our entire air conditioning system replaced. And which is running very well now.
That's good.
And then when you came back, his ear had ballooned again, so he needs to go on this head wrap again. And it's again another, he can't shake his head, he can't rub his head against anything. All the things that he loves to do, he's not able to do. So he had to be stabilized for that. And then finally it resolved.
But
And he's
that
been
was
fine since.
that was the next thing that kept us from going on our alternative camping summer
we
vacation.
had said, okay, let's go back to that cabin we like to go to in the Smokies. So that one was off. And then you lost your cousin to cancer. As you lost your cousin to cancer, that was our summer that way, with having to help family out with these losses. And so I kind of stayed home. On the other hand, I also had a year ago had a cancer thing. And I just a little over 2 weeks ago, it had a second biopsy, and it shows nothing there anymore, which was pretty good news.
Yes.
But I never really liked to talk about mine as, oh yeah, I'm a cancer person, because it was such a marginal case to begin with, and it seemed treatable. And there are too many people who have gone through so much anguish and desperation, physical pain and loss with it. I didn't want to be. It's like a guy who gets nicked by a piece of shrapnel from a bomb that took his buddy's legs off, and they both get the Purple Heart. That's okay. But I wasn't going to go for the big, everyone look at me because I've got this situation. And it resolved. And I was happy about that. And I heard in a Star Talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson, he had someone on from the City of Hope, and in California, she does work with cancer at the cell level. Some very promising things. She said all of us are cancer survivors because we each deal with, say, 8 cells of cancer every day that our body takes care of. And it's those that the body can't take care of that we have to take care of. And hopefully we can solve it. Somehow my body took care of whatever was happening there for the time being. And that's just a chapter in an ongoing story. So that's how I spent my summer. I didn't go anywhere. Well, I went to Disney.
And sat in the train station, apparently.
And sat in the train, and then I came back. And I hope to go back one day. So there's a quick look at a summer that just wouldn't end. It did end, however, on a positive note for my health, and I want and need to give my thanks to all who reached out with a word of concern and care. I might need it again someday, but for now, let's direct all of our care and concern to all those we know, those we love. Until next time.